Commander Lee Hyun stood frozen on the bridge of the battleship. Rising dawn. His knuckles white as he gripped the command rail. The massive holographic display in front of him painted a picture of absolute horror. 23 human ships had been reduced to glowing debris in the last hour alone. The Vorthak Empire's warships moved through space like deadly crystal sharks, their diamond-hard hulls catching and reflecting the light of dying human vessels in twisted rainbows of destruction. "Commander, the new Sol is breaking apart," shouted Lieutenant Park Min-ho from his sensor station, sweat beading on his forehead despite the bridge's cool air. His fingers flew across the controls, trying to get a clearer reading through the chaos. "They're taking on refugees from the mining colonies, sir. Over 40,000 civilians aboard." Hyun watched helplessly as the massive passenger liner, its hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere, tried desperately to reach the safety of the jump point. A Vorthak interceptor, sleek and deadly as a blade, cut across its path. The alien ship's crystalline weapons fired once, just once, and the new Sol became a brief star before fading to nothing. 40,000 people, whispered navigation. Officer Yoon Da-un, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's systems. Gone in seconds. The bridge fell silent except for the constant chatter of damage reports and retreat orders flooding their communications. Hyun closed his eyes for a moment, trying to block out the voices of captains reporting impossible odds, of colony governors begging for evacuation ships that would never come. "Sir, we've lost contact with Harmony Station," Park Min-ho reported, his voice cracking slightly. The young officer had family there. His sister worked in the orbital research facility. "Long-range sensors show massive energy discharge in that sector. Casualty estimates are in the millions." Hyun clenched his fist so hard his nails bit into his palms. 3 months. 3 months of this nightmare. 3 months of watching the Vorthak tear through humanity's outer defenses like they were made of paper. The aliens didn't fight like any enemy humanity had ever faced. They moved with perfect coordination, their crystalline ships dancing through space in formations that seemed almost alive. When they captured human vessels, the crews simply vanished. No prisoners, no negotiations, no mercy. "Commander, the evacuation. Fleet from New Busan is requesting immediate escort," called out Communications Officer Kim Sora, her fingers dancing across her console. "They've got 200,000 refugees packed into cargo haulers. The ships weren't built for this many people." Through the main viewport, Hyun could see the desperate convoy of civilian vessels struggling to keep formation. Cargo ships, pleasure yachts, even old mining barges, anything that could carry people away from the advancing alien fleet. Children pressed their faces against tiny portholes, looking for parents who might never come home. The tactical display updated again, showing more red dots appearing at the edge of sensor range. More Vorthak ships, moving in their terrifyingly perfect formations. The aliens had been advancing steadily through human space for months, consuming everything in their path. Their bioprocessing ships, massive cathedral-like vessels, followed behind the attack fleets, harvesting entire worlds. Nobody knew what happened to the millions of people who disappeared into those ships, but the screams that sometimes leaked through subspace communications told a story no one wanted to believe. "Sir, enemy contacts multiplying," reported Tactical Officer Lim Dong-wook, his voice tight with controlled fear. "I count 47 Vorthak vessels moving into attack formation. We can't protect the evacuation fleet against those numbers." Hyun stared at the display, watching the red dots spread across the hologram like some deadly infection. His small task force of 8 ships, all that remained of the once mighty Terran Third Fleet, couldn't hope to stand against such overwhelming force. But if they ran now, those 200,000 refugees would die. "Admiral, incoming priority. Transmission from Earth Command," Kim Sora announced suddenly, her voice carrying a strange note of surprise. "It's on the Blackwater Channel, sir. Maximum encryption." Hyun frowned. The Blackwater Channel was reserved for the most classified, military communications. In 20 years of service, he'd never received a message on that frequency. "Put it through to my private console," he ordered, moving to the sealed communication station at the back of the bridge. The message was brief, barely 30 seconds long, But the authorization codes made his blood run cold. These weren't just from Fleet Command. They came from the very top of Earth's military hierarchy. People whose names were classified above his security level. Operation Stormfall authorized. Withdraw all forces to minimum safe distance. Countdown begins now. 72 hours. Do not attempt to interfere with incoming assets. Repeat, maintain minimum safe distance. Godspeed, Admiral. Huen stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Operation Stormfall. He'd never heard the name before, but something about it sent a chill down his spine. The authorization codes were genuine. He'd bet his life on it. But what kind of operation required the entire fleet to withdraw to minimum safe distance? Sir? Park Min-ho called from across the bridge. The Vorthak fleet is accelerating. They'll reach the evacuation convoy in 40 minutes. Yun looked out at the desperate refugee ships, then back at the message on his screen. Whatever Stormfall was coming. And apparently it was something Earth Command didn't want their own ships anywhere near when it arrived. Deep in the cold darkness beyond Neptune's orbit, where sunlight was nothing more than a distant star, something stirred. In the asteroid belt, hidden manufacturing facilities that had been dormant for decades suddenly burst into life, their automated systems humming with deadly purpose. These weren't ordinary mining stations or research outposts. They were humanity's deepest secret, built in the shadows and powered by technology that officially didn't exist. Captain Cho Dae-sung felt the familiar bite of cold as his cryogenic pod began its revival sequence. Ice crystals formed and melted on his enhanced skin as warmth slowly returned to his body. His cybernetic implants came online first, flooding his consciousness with tactical data and enemy positions before his natural eyes even opened. The neural interface behind his left ear tingled as it connected to the ship's systems, downloading 3 months of intelligence about the Vorthak invasion. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of preservation mist. Dae-sung sat up slowly, his enhanced muscles responding perfectly despite months of frozen sleep. Around him, the vast chamber stretched into darkness, filled with thousands of identical pods arranged in perfect rows like some mechanical graveyard. But these graves were giving up their dead. One by one, the pods activated with soft electronic chimes. Steam rose from each container as the revival process began. These weren't regular soldiers emerging from their icy sleep. The men and women stirring to life in this hidden facility were something else entirely. Humanity's monsters, kept frozen until the day they would be needed. "Rise and shine, you beautiful killers," came a voice over the intercom system. Major Kang Hyejin's tone carried a mixture of dark humor and deadly seriousness. "Welcome back to the Living Ghost Battalion. Hope you enjoyed your nap, because it's time to go to work." Dae-sung swung his legs over the edge of his pod and stood, his enhanced nervous system already calculating attack vectors and weapon configurations. The man in the pod next to him was Sergeant Nam Ki-tae, a veteran of the Martian underground wars that the history books claimed never happened. On his other side, Lieutenant Oh Soo-min stretched like a cat, her cybernetic eyes glowing softly in the dim light. She'd been a government assassin before volunteering for this program, choosing the ice over a life sentence for crimes that were still classified. The chamber filled with the sounds of thousands of enhanced soldiers preparing for combat. These weren't Earth's finest, they were Earth's darkest. Veterans of Shadow Wars fought in the outer colonies, survivors of military experiments that pushed the boundaries of human capability, volunteers from maximum security prisons who had chosen this frozen hell over execution. "Listen up, ghosts," Major Kang's voice echoed through the facility. "While you've been sleeping, the bugheads have been busy. They've pushed our people back to the inner colonies and they're harvesting everything in their path. Command estimates over 50 million civilians are already gone." Dae-sung felt something cold settle in his chest, and it had nothing to do with the cryogenic revival. 50 million people. The Vorthak weren't just conquering, they were erasing humanity one world at a time. "But here's the thing about humans," Kang continued, her voice taking on a predatory edge. "We don't just fight back. We evolve. We adapt. And when someone threatens our families, We become something the galaxy has never seen before. The lights in the chamber brightened, revealing the true scale of the operation. The facility stretched for kilometers in every direction, carved into the heart of a massive asteroid. Automated assembly lines worked frantically, producing weapons and equipment that defied conventional physics. Gravity manipulating assault rifles, armor that could shift between solid and liquid states, ammunition that could track targets through multiple dimensions. Your mission is simple, Kang announced as holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber. The Vorthak think they're apex predators. They think they've seen everything the galaxy has to offer. Time to show them what happens when you corner a human. Daesung walked to the equipment stations, where robotic arms fitted his enhanced body with armor that seemed alive. The suit's surface rippled and shifted, adapting to his biological signatures and integrating with his cybernetic implants. Weapons materialized in his hands, rifles that fired rounds capable of penetrating crystalline alien hulls, grenades that could survive the vacuum of space and hunt targets for hours. Around him, his fellow ghosts prepared with the same deadly efficiency. These were soldiers who had been deemed too dangerous for normal military service, too ruthless for peacetime operations. They were humanity's dark mirror, the evolutionary path that civilization preferred to forget existed. Stealth ships are prepped and ready, reported Ship Commander Lee Jae-wook over the comm. We've got transport disguised as everything from mining debris to destroyed colony ships. The bugheads won't see us coming until we're already inside their hulls. Through the facility's viewports, Daesung could see the stealth vessels being loaded. They looked like nothing more than space junk, twisted metal fragments, dead satellites, pieces of destroyed ships. But each piece of debris contained a squad of Ghost Battalion soldiers and enough firepower to level a city. Remember, Major Kang's voice cut through the preparation noise. We're not just fighting for victory, we're fighting to send a message. Every alien species in the galaxy is watching this war, deciding whether humanity is worth conquering or worth avoiding. Let's make sure they choose wisely. The ghost soldiers moved toward their transports with predatory grace, their enhanced bodies carrying enough destruction to change the course of the war. In the depths of space, the Vorthak fleet continued its systematic advance, unaware that death itself was falling toward them through the void, disguised as harmless debris. The Vorthak dreadnought. Crystal Fang had been leading the alien fleet's advance for 3 days when something went wrong. Deep inside its crystalline hull, microscopic machines smaller than bacteria began their deadly work. The ship's bioluminescent corridors, which had glowed with steady blue light for centuries, started flickering. Power conduits that channeled energy through living crystal began dying from the inside out. Commander Zekthar noticed the problem first when his tactical display started showing system failures across multiple decks. The tall insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected the dying lights as he tried to understand what was happening to his ship. These weren't random malfunctions. Something was systematically destroying their technology. Engineering report. He clicked in his species' complex language, his forearms working frantically at the control interface. Unknown pathogen in the power grid, came the panicked response. It's consuming our crystal matrix faster than we can repair it. What the Vorthak couldn't see were the billions of nanites that had been delivered during what they'd dismissed as minor debris impacts over the past 12 hours. Each piece of space junk that had bounced harmlessly off their shields had left behind microscopic hunters programmed with one simple mission: find Vorthak technology and eat it. Across the alien fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Ships that had conquered 12 different species were suddenly going dark, their crews struggling with equipment failures they couldn't understand or stop. The nanites spread through their vessels like a plague, turning the aliens' own technology against them. Then the real attack began. Sergeant Yang Taeho's drop pod looked like nothing more than a chunk of destroyed human ship when it separated from the debris field surrounding the Vorthak fleet. The aliens' sensors, already confused by the widespread system failures, didn't even register it as a threat. That was their first mistake. The pod's stealth systems kept it invisible until the last possible second. When it finally ignited its drives, It was already too late for the Vorthak to react. The armored projectile slammed through the crystalline hull of the command ship, Death's Edge, like a bullet through glass, tearing a perfect hole through 3 decks before coming to rest in the ship's central corridor. Yang felt his enhanced nervous system catalog the alien atmosphere in milliseconds as his pod cracked open. Nitrogen-oxygen mix, slightly higher pressure than Earth normal, trace amounts of methane. His powered armor adapted instantly, its biofilters adjusting to process the alien air while his weapons systems came online. The corridor stretched away in both directions, its walls made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with sickly, green light. The architecture was wrong for human eyes, too tall, too angular, designed for creatures that moved differently than humans. But Yang wasn't here to admire alien engineering. Contact front. He shouted into his comm system as the first Vorthak warrior rounded the corner. The alien was massive, nearly 3 meters tall with 4 powerful arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Its compound eyes, each the size of Yang's fist, tracked him, with inhuman precision as it moved with liquid grace down the corridor. The creature had evolved on a high-gravity world where only the fastest survived, and it could cross the distance between them in heartbeats. But Yang moved faster. His assault rifle came up in one smooth motion, the weapon's smart targeting system, painting the alien with laser designators even as he squeezed the trigger. The rounds that left his barrel weren't ordinary bullets. They were miniature guided missiles, each one capable of changing direction mid-flight and penetrating armor that could stop conventional weapons. The first shot took the Vorthak warrior, center mass, the smart round punching through its crystalline battle armor and exploding inside its chest cavity. The second and third shots were already in the air before the first one hit, tracking additional targets that Yang's enhanced senses had detected moving behind the walls. More aliens poured into the corridor, their claws sparking against the crystal walls as they charged. But Yang's armor was already adapting, its surface analyzing the aliens' technology and integrating their innovations in real time. Vorthak shield generators flickered to life on his shoulders while his rifle's power core upgraded itself using stolen alien energy patterns. "This is Ghost 7, Yang reported as he methodically eliminated targets. "Hostile vessel breached. Beginning interior sweep." Throughout the Vorthak fleet, similar scenes were playing out as Ghost Battalion turned the aliens' own ships into hunting grounds. Captain Cho Dae-sung materialized inside a carrier vessel, his stealth suit dropping its camouflage as he opened fire on surprised alien crew members. His weapons fired rounds that could track targets through solid walls, following the heat signatures of fleeing enemies and striking them even when they thought they were safe. On the battleship, Void Render, Sergeant Nam Ki-tae's enhanced muscles allowed him to move through the ship's corridors, faster than the aliens could track. His cybernetic eyes could see in spectrums that confused the Vorthak targeting systems, while his weapons integrated their technology as fast as he could capture it. The aliens had never faced anything like this. In their conquest of 12 species, they had encountered various forms of resistance, brave defenders, clever tactics, even desperate last stands. But they had never fought an enemy that could adapt to their technology in real time, that could turn their own innovations against them within minutes of encountering them. Lieutenant Oh Soo-min dropped into the engine room of a Vorthak destroyer, her cybernetic implants immediately interfacing with the ship's control systems. Within seconds, she was turning the vessel's own weapons against its crew, using their crystalline energy cannons to tear through bulkheads and eliminate resistance. "Command, this is Ghost Battalion," reported Major Kang Hye-jin from her position aboard the alien flagship. "We are inside their fleet, beginning systematic elimination of command and control. The bugheads have no idea what hit them." The Vorthak, who had spent centuries perfecting the art of conquest, suddenly found themselves on the wrong end of an assault they couldn't understand or counter. These humans didn't just fight. They evolved in real time, becoming more dangerous with every passing minute. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Soo-jin pressed herself against the crystalline wall of the Vorthak flagship, her enhanced hearing picking up the clicking sounds of alien communication from around the corner. Her adaptive camouflage suit shifted color to match the pulsing green light of the ship's bioluminescent corridors, making her nearly invisible to both human and alien eyes. 6 hours. 6 hours. since her squad had breached the hull of the massive vessel, and they were still 3 decks away from the bridge. But every minute had been worth it. Behind them lay a trail of chaos, security systems turned against their operators, automated defenses reprogrammed to hunt their former masters, and alien crew members who had simply vanished into the ship's own maintenance systems. "Colonel, we've got movement ahead," whispered Corporal Wang Ji-hoon through their neural link. The young soldier was 50 meters ahead, his position marked by a tiny blip on Soo-jin's tactical display. "Looks like they're setting up some kind of barricade." Soo-jin smiled grimly. The Vorthak were learning, adapting to human tactics just like any intelligent species would, but they were thinking like conquerors, not like prey, and that would be their downfall. "They're adapting to our tactics," Ji-hoon continued, his voice tight with concentration. "The bugheads are learning our patterns. They've blocked off the main corridors and they're using some kind of sonic weapon that scrambles our electronics. Then we'll teach them something new," Soo-jin replied, pulling a device from her equipment pack that looked like a metallic spider. The nanoconstructor was one of humanity's most classified weapons, a machine that could interface with any technology and rewrite its programming in real time. She placed the device against the ship's wall and watched as its mechanical legs extended into the crystalline structure. Within seconds, it was tapping into the flagship's central nervous system, spreading through the ship's network like a virus made of liquid metal. The Vorthak had built their ships to be extensions of themselves, living vessels that responded to their thoughts and emotions, but that integration also made them vulnerable. As Soo-jin's nanoconstructor worked its way through the ship's systems, it began turning the vessel's own defensive mechanisms against its crew. Environmental controls that had maintained perfect atmosphere for centuries suddenly began flooding sections with toxic gases. Gravity generators that had kept the aliens comfortable in their preferred high-gravity environment started fluctuating wildly, sending crew members tumbling through corridors. Emergency blast doors began sealing randomly, trapping alien soldiers in compartments that slowly filled with the ship's own industrial chemicals. "Colonel, the barricade is collapsing," Ji-hoon reported with amazement. "The ship's eating itself from the inside out." Soo-jin moved forward, her squad following like shadows through the chaos. They passed Vorthak warriors who were struggling against their own ship's security systems, aliens who had been locked inside their quarters by doors that no longer recognized their access codes, crew members who found themselves being hunted by the ship's own automated repair drones. On the bridge of the massive flagship, Admiral Velkaran watched his tactical displays with growing horror. The holographic projection showed his fleet in real time, hundreds of vessels that had been the pride of the Vorthak Empire. But now, more than half of them were dark, their signals lost to whatever plague had infected his forces. "Report," Hitao demanded, his forearms working frantically at the command interface. The Admiral was ancient by Vorthak standards, having personally overseen the conquest of 12 different species over the course of 3 centuries, but he had never seen anything like this. "Fleet-wide system failures continue to spread," reported his tactical officer, her compound eyes reflecting the dying lights of the control panels. "The humans aren't just boarding our ships, they're converting them. Our own vessels are turning against us." Velkaran's mandibles clicked together in frustration. How many of them are there? Surely we face an army of millions to cause such devastation. The tactical officer's antennae twitched nervously. "Analysis suggests fewer than 10,000 individual humans, Admiral. But they fight as if they are 10 million. The number hit Velkaran like a physical blow. 10,000. In a fleet of over 2 million Vorthak warriors, 10,000 humans were causing this level of destruction. It was impossible, yet the evidence was right there on his displays. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered," reported his intelligence officer from across the bridge. "Previous conquered races fought defensively, trying to protect their territory. These humans are fighting like hunters. They're not trying to drive us away, they're trying to consume us." As if summoned by his words, the bridge's security system suddenly activated, filling the command center with toxic gas. Velkaran watched in shock as his own ship began turning against him. the environmental controls shifting to an atmosphere that would slowly poison any Vorthak who breathed it. "Emergency protocols," he shouted, but the ship's computer didn't respond. Instead, the view screens around the bridge began displaying tactical information, but from the human perspective. He could see his own ship's weaknesses highlighted in red optimal attack vectors marked with pulsing arrows. Critical systems identified for sabotage. The humans weren't just fighting them. They were studying them, learning their technology, faster than the Vorthak could adapt to human tactics. Every ship they boarded became a laboratory. Every captured system became a weapon to use against the next target. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different ships," reported his communications officer, her voice nearly drowned out by the alarms filling the bridge. "They're requesting permission to power down their weapons and evacuate their crews." Velkaran stared at the tactical display, watching red dots spread across his fleet like some kind of infection. Each red dot represented a ship that was no longer under Vorthak control, a vessel that had been converted into a weapon against its former masters. For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, the Admiral felt something he had forgotten existed: fear. Not the simple concern of a difficult battle, but the primal terror of realizing that you were no longer the predator. The humans hadn't sent an army to fight his fleet. They had sent evolution itself, a force that adapted and grew stronger with every encounter. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos surrounding them. "I don't think we're fighting soldiers. I think we're fighting something else entirely." As the ship's lights began to flicker and die around them, Velkaran realized the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't sent their armies to fight the Vorthak Empire. They had sent their monsters, creatures that thrived in chaos, that grew stronger when cornered, that turned every weapon against their enemies. The age of Vorthak conquest was ending, and something far more dangerous was taking its place. The transmission came on every known frequency in the galaxy, broadcast from the shattered remains of what had once been the most powerful fleet in known space. Admiral Velkaran's voice, broken and hollow, echoed across the void in dozens of different languages as translation systems worked overtime to carry his message to every corner of civilization. "This is Admiral Velkaran of the Vorthak Empire, speaking for all remaining forces. We surrender. Unconditional surrender to the human species. All Vorthak vessels are ordered to power down weapons and prepare for human oversight. The war is over. 72 hours. That's all it had taken for humanity's Ghost Battalion to turn the galaxy's most feared conquerors into broken refugees, begging for mercy." The Vorthak fleet, which had crushed 12 species over 3 centuries, now drifted in space like a graveyard of crystalline ships, most of them dark and lifeless. Commander Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, rising, dawn, watching the impossible scene unfold on his tactical display. Where 3 days ago he had seen overwhelming alien superiority, now he witnessed the aftermath of something that would be remembered as the most decisive military victory in galactic history. "Sir, I'm reading power signatures going offline across the enemy fleet," reported Lieutenant Park Min-ho, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're actually doing it. They're shutting down their weapons and surrendering." Through the main viewport, Hyun could see the massive Vorthak vessels hanging, motionless in space, their crystalline hulls dark and cold. Some showed signs of battle damage, but most appeared intact. They had simply been abandoned by crews who no longer wanted to fight an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. "Incoming transmission from Ghost Battalion," announced communications. Officer Kim Sora, her fingers trembling slightly as she worked her console. "Captain Cho Dae-sung reporting from the captured Vorthak flagship." Dae-sung's voice came through the speakers with the satisfied tone of a job well done. "Ghost Battalion. Mission complete, Admiral. We've secured the enemy command structure and established control over their remaining vessels. The bugheads are asking for evacuation to their home systems. They don't want to fight anymore." Hyun shook his head in amazement. 10,000 human soldiers had destroyed a force that numbered in the millions. But they hadn't just won a battle. They had broken the enemy's will to fight entirely. "Sir," Kim Sora called out again, her voice carrying a note of excitement. We're receiving surrender offers from 17 different alien factions, not just the Vorthak, other species that were planning to invade human space. They're all backing down. The implications hit Hyun like a physical blow. Word was already spreading across the galaxy through the vast network of communication relays that connected every civilized world. The story of how humanity had turned the tables on their would-be conquerors was racing ahead of the Vorthak fleets. Desperate retreat, carried by traders, diplomats, and military observers who had witnessed the impossible. On the bridge of the captured Vorthak flagship, Captain Cho Dae-sung walked through corridors that still smelled of alien fear. The surviving crew members pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, their compound eyes tracking his every movement. These creatures, who had terrorized entire star systems, now cowered like children in the presence of a single human soldier. Ghost 7 to all units. He spoke into his comm system. Sweep and secure is complete. The ship is ours and the crew is cooperative. They're so scared they're practically giving us their military secrets without being asked. Lieutenant. Colonel Bae Soo-jin's voice crackled back from another captured vessel. Same story here, Captain. The aliens are sharing intelligence about other hostile species, trying to prove they're valuable to us alive. They've gone from conquerors to collaborators in less than 3 days. The psychological impact was exactly what Earth Command had hoped for when they authorized Operation Stormfall. The galaxy operated on a simple principle: the strong dominated the weak. For centuries, species had been judged by their military might and their willingness to use it. The Vorthak had been at the top of that hierarchy, feared and respected throughout known space. But now, everything had changed. The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented, a species that didn't just fight back when cornered, but evolved into something more dangerous than their attackers could imagine. Humanity had shown the universe that they weren't just another civilization to be conquered or bargained with. They were apex predators, masquerading as a peaceful species. Sir, long-range sensors are picking up movement in the Rigel sector, reported Navigation Officer Yoon Da-eun. The Zelkonian Confederacy is pulling back their invasion fleets. They're retreating from human space without firing a shot. Similar reports flooded in over the next hour. The crystalline hierarchy, which had been massing ships near the outer colonies, suddenly announced a diplomatic mission instead of military action. The Hive collectives, infamous for their relentless expansion, declared human space off-limits to their scout fleets. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers, who rarely communicated with other species, sent a message of respect and non-aggression. Captain Cho Dae-sung's voice came over the comm again, this time with a hint of dark humor. Admiral, you should see the intelligence we're pulling from these ships. The Vorthak weren't just planning to conquer us, they were planning to harvest our entire species. They had processing facilities ready to turn Earth into a resource extraction site. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If the Ghost Battalion hadn't been deployed, if Operation Stormfall had failed, humanity wouldn't have just lost a war. They would have ceased to exist as a species. But here's the interesting part, Dae-sung continued. The aliens are sharing this information because they want us to know they were just following orders. They're terrified that we might decide to return the favor. As the hours passed, more alien civilizations made contact with Earth Command. Some offered trade agreements, others proposed military alliances, and a few simply sent messages acknowledging humanity's new status in the galactic hierarchy. The galaxy's power structure had shifted overnight, with humanity moving from insignificant newcomers to a species that other civilizations approached with extreme caution. Sir, Kim So-ra reported, Earth Command is requesting a full debrief. They want to know if we're ready to begin Phase 2 of human expansion into the outer sectors. Hyun looked out at the captured Vorthak fleet, at the alien vessels that now flew human flags and carried human crews. The galaxy had wanted to test humanity's resolve, to see if Earth's children could be easily conquered and controlled. They had gotten their answer. Humanity wasn't just ready to defend itself, it was ready to claim its place among the stars. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The ghost soldiers who had descended from orbit hadn't just saved humanity from extinction, They had announced to the universe that Earth's children were not prey to be hunted but predators to be feared. And every alien civilization that had once considered humanity weak now understood the terrible truth. When you corner a human, you don't create a victim. You create a monster. The end.